All day, Yin never left her room. She immersed herself in her books. Uraga had been the only one who brought her food for breakfast and lunch. Surprisingly, no one from the court questioned why she locked herself inside her chambers, nor did someone try to fetch her. Yin is not complaining, though. She is loving the comfort and peace of her chambers. Although she was sure that ridiculous rumors would start up again, she also made time to write a letter to her family back in Magnus. Pouring her feelings to the letter, Yin must admit she felt a little better. Yin thought she had more time, but it seemed that it wasn't that case when she suddenly heard knocks from the outside of her chambers. Oh, not this guy again. Uraka, who was knitting, looked up and rushed to the door. Yin sighed as she heard multiple footsteps and was forced to close her book to face her visitors. Your Majesty, it's Priest Aoyama and Midoriya. Both of them bowed and waited for her to speak. Yin stood them, soothed her dress before standing with poise. How may I help you? She asked. Priest Aoyama is here to take you on today's Saturday evening mass. Midoriya spoke. Yin raised a brow. She thought it was so random and all of a sudden. Mostly she attended mass on Sunday mornings. But I'm supposed to attend to tomorrow. Yes, Midoriya lowered his head, but His Majesty requested for you to attend the evening mass. Then Priestess Aoyama spoke. His Majesty had confidence in me about you, and I advise that bringing you closer to the words of God would make you feel better. Did he? Yin narrowed her eyes in suspicion. Oi. Yin turned her gaze to Midoriya, who immediately gave her a sad smile. Do I have a choice? I'm afraid none, Your Majesty. Priest Aoyama closed his eyes. Of course I don't. She muttered and huffed and turned away from them. Thank you. I will go prepare to go out. Both men immediately went out. Uraka dashed to get Yin a dress more fitting for the mass. Soon the servant was fitting her into the dress. Then her hair was almost done, and finally, Yin was ready to go. Thank you. Yin turned to Uraka when she draped a furred coat over her, and then she handed her a pair of gloves to which Yin slipped on. When she went out, she found Midoriya and Priest Aoyama waiting outside. As soon as they saw her, they immediately started leading the way. They got outside, and Yin draped the hood of her cloak to shield herself. She looked ahead to see 2 carriages prepared for them. I'll be with Priest Aoyama, Your Majesty, Midoriya said with a low voice. Yin nodded at him and climbed on her own carriage. She was alone, to which she's thankful for, although she also wanted to talk to Midoriya for a bit. But soon the carriage started leaving, and Yin was left to see the view of the different houses they passed by until they arrived at the church. The mass made Yin feel a little bit better. She told herself to thank Priest Aoyama for that, but didn't have the chance to do it as she was immediately ushered to her carriage. The coachman insisted that it was already late, and indeed, the sky had turned dark. Yin was back on her carriage again, alone like earlier. She turned to see the carriage where Midoriya is. His carriage was ahead of her, and had already started leaving. Her desire to talk to him had gone stronger. As she looked ahead, she wondered what's taking the coachman so long. Not a moment, her carriage started. She looked to see that Midoriya's carriage is too far and too little to be seen now. So she leaned back on her seat with a sigh. Although attending the mass had made its trick, she still couldn't help but feel dread upon realizing that she'd be back in the palace once again. Yin suddenly smelled something weird. She stiffed and squinted her eyes to see smoke inside her carriage? Or is it fog? She didn't know and didn't have much time to look further as she suddenly felt dizzy and her eyes suddenly got heavy. Unable to fight the drowsiness, Yin let herself slip into darkness. It felt like it's been a while since Yin had fallen asleep. Now she's being woken up by a strange sound. It sounded like something being tapped or hit. Her eyes opened, her senses had heightened, and now can clearly hear the sound of tapping sounds in the very much like a hammer hitting a nail. Yin sat straight and looked around. There, just outside the carriage door, was the coachman. Yin furrowed her brows and leaned further to see him, what he's hammering at wooden planks on the carriage. Yin started tapping the glass window of the carriage, and the coachman noticed. "Excuse me?" Yin raised her voice for him to hear. The coachman's eyes widened and rushed his hammering. "What are you doing?" Yin started tapping onto the glass window. Please let me out. Let me out now." The coachman did not listen. Yin's heart dropped when the coachman dropped the hammer and gave her an apologizing look. "I'm so sorry, Your Majesty," he mouthed before he grabbed a lantern and disappeared. That's when Yin heard the horse. The coachman then appeared, riding a horse used for the carriage, and he even took the other horse with him. Yin was left with her mouth open and eyes widened. Her view of the coachman got smaller and smaller as he rode further away until he completely disappeared. Yin panicked. She started fumbling on the carriage door as much as she could, even slamming her fist on the glass window, only to see that her efforts had been futile. She looked around and struggled to see where she was, as the sky had completely turned black. However, Yin was able to make out tall and large trees. She wants to scream for help, but thought that it would be useless. She believes that she's in the middle of the woods, so Yin calmed herself and breathed in and out slowly. She then removed her gloves and placed a palm against the glass window and let her hand glow red. The glass immediately broke into pieces. Then she felt the plank that barricaded the door. She grabbed a hold of it and used her quirk to turn it into pieces. "All right," Yin breathed out in relief. Then she opened the carriage door and stepped out. The chilly air embraced her, making her jeer shiver. She wrapped her cloak around her tightly. Yin was right. She was left in the middle of the woods, with a horseless carriage to get her home, and with no lantern to guide her. What to do? Glancing around, Yin couldn't see anything but endless trees before her. She's also unfamiliar of the woods of Igneous, as she had never been here before. Yin is lost in a place she barely knew. What might be the motives of the coachman? She doesn't know. However, his apologetic face earlier showed that he maybe was forced to do it. A name immediately popped in her mind, but she refused to believe it. Shaking her head, Yin started to walk on the direction where the coachman disappeared, hoping to catch up with him. The cool air and the dark surrounding made her shiver in fear. She felt like she was being watched from behind, and it made her to constantly look back. However, Yin couldn't see anything but darkness, the feeling of being watched still there, until a sound of wolves howling reached her ears, causing Yin to completely stand stiff. She can feel it. She can feel them behind her. Their howls didn't sound so far. They're near. Her breath went uneven, and she could feel her chest hammering. The sound of her loud heartbeat made her more nervous. When Yin was able to muster up her courage, she grabbed a hold of her god-forsaken dress and sprinted as fast as she could. She knows the wolves would eventually catch up to her, but Yin is desperate, so she ran as fast as she could. She'll wait for the opportunity to use her quirk. She ran and ran, in the hopes of getting out alive and well. Midori had never felt more scared in his life. When he saw no carriage following after him, he was left frozen. "Where's the other carriage?" "Sir?" a servant asked. "Where's the other carriage?" Midori repeated. "I thought it was only you, sir. I never saw another carriage. Shit! Midoriya felt his whole body went stiff. He looked around to search for the coachman of his carriage, but he had already disappeared to God who knows where. The green-haired scholar then looked ahead and started walking to the gates. His quirk activated and he got ready to jump. Midoriya? Suddenly, Kirishima appeared. Where are you going? To find Yin, Midoriya said in a rushed tone. What do you mean, to find Yin? Aren't you with her? Yes, we rode on different carriages. I thought she was just behind me, he breathed out. But she's not here yet. Something must have happened. We don't have time. Please tell Gachan. I'll go look for her. All right. Without any hesitation, any more time, Midoriya dashed outside the palace grounds. Midoriya watched him go, and then turned to get inside. Bakugou had a quiet time when the nobles left the throne room, and he was left all by himself, which is a good thing. Bakugou hadn't remembered the last time he had been left alone by his own advisors, by the nobles, and by all the eyes of the people in the court. And he was free from his wife Yin, his nagging little wife. Bakugou stood up and abandoned the maps and paperwork and the long table to go to the window and revel in the sight of his kingdom. His peace didn't last long when the doors of the throne room slammed open. Bakugou sighed externally and turned to whoever barged inside. Bakugou! He was met with the sight of Kirishima, his tone urgent and worry evident on his face. What is it, Kirishima? Midoriya came back and Yin was not with him. Oh, that! Bakugou realized. Then he waited for Kirishima to continue. He told me to tell you that something must have happened to her. Bakugou, let's send a search party, Kirishima said. So, she's gone. Bakugou muttered to himself. He thought back to the coachman and smirked at his success. What? Kirishima stepped closer. Bakugou wiped his smirk off, raised his head, and turned away. She'll be fine. He praised that Kirishima would dismiss it and stop asking more questions, but it seems the red-headed man is still not done yet after Bakugou heard him let out a noise of disbelief. Bakugou looked back at Kirishima. What? Kirishima furrowed his eyebrows. How are you so sure? She could really be in trouble. I trust her with the coachman. She might have told him to stop so she could go around town to parade herself. Kirishima remained quiet, and Bakugou would like him to remain quiet. However, the worry in his face didn't fade, and when Bakugou looked a little closer, he saw Kirishima look at him with suspicious. You sound unsurely calm. Kirishima narrowed his eyes. If it was Mina in Yin's situation, I would have lost my mind. But you? Aren't you worried? And why the hell should I be worried? Kirishima gritted his teeth in disbelief. Because she's your wife, for fuck's sake! The ash-blonde male blinked. Then he glared intently at Kirishima. But his friend had by far gotten used to his threatening demeanor, so he wasn't fazed. Bakugou clicked his tongue and turned away. Bakugou, what did you do now? Kirishima asked. He knew there's no use in lying to Kirishima anymore. That man had known him since they were teens, and he had already caught up that Bakugou was hiding something. And indeed, Bakugou had done something he meant to keep. Just reminding her where she stands, Bakugou answered. What exactly did you? What does it even matter to you? Bakugou's voice reverberated through the halls. I don't know what you did, but better not be dangerous. The future of the kingdom relies on her too. This time, Kirishima sounded impatient. Bakugou snapped. Jesus Christ! Calm down, I only told the coachman to lose her in the woods. The woods? Kirishima is close to ripping his hair. There are wolves in the wolves. Oh my god, there are wolves in the woods. Why would you put her there?
Bring her back now. Don't tell me what to do, Bakugou sneered. I know what I'm doing, and I also know she does not have some weak shit quirk that wouldn't help her out there. Still, don't argue with me, Kirishima. Bakugou stared him down. Kirishima stopped. She's my wife, and it's none of your business what I do to her. Man, we talked about this, Kirishima sighed. Yes, she's none of my business, but as your friend, I'm here to support you and guide you on everything. And don't you think you're going too far with Yin? Also, we can't let what happened with your first wife happen again. What are you saying? If you continue to mistreat Yin, she might try to kill you too. That shut him up. The throne room was completely still, and the faint sounds of their breathing can be heard through the silence. Bakugou's eyes are no longer glaring. Instead, they are wide with fury, and a small hint of fear lingered in them. At that moment of his first wife, he felt his body shook. Bakugou clenched his fist and was ready to yell at Kirishima in order to end this argument. However, before he could even do so, the doors to the throne room opened once again. Both men whipped their intense gaze at each other to look at the entrance. By the door is the coachman, being dragged on the floor, his clothes dirtied in disarray, while his face showed fear. Bakugou also noticed Midoriya behind, panting and looking concerned. Lastly, the person responsible for the coachman's pitiful position is none other than the woman that makes Bakugou's insides turn in irritation. Yin stood there, her dress ripped, her face dirty. However, that appearance didn't falter the expression on her face. You, she sneered. And as she turned to Bakugou, there was nothing in her gaze but fury.